like to think I'm an adventurous person. I enjoy a physical challenge. When I started backpacking and rock climbing in my 30s, I ended up doing things I never dreamed of in my 20s, like trekking across the Grand Canyon, sleeping alone in bear country, and scaling a 50-foot cliff. So during my trip to Rome in November 2023, I thought, of course I'll climb the highest dome there is, St. Peter's Dome to be exact. It takes you 551 steps to the top for an epic view of the Eternal City. There was just one little problem. While heights and wild animals may not bother me, I am claustrophobic. The thought of being in a small space makes me feel totally panicked. While traveling, I have repeatedly avoided tours that would put me in such spaces. I don't go in caves. I don't go in mines. I don't go in submarines. When researching my trip, I saw other people's photos and videos of the stairs inside St. Peter's Dome and honestly found them hard to even look at. So I thought, that decides it. I'll see the Basilica, but skip the dome. On the day of our trip to Vatican City, we walked along the bridge to the Castel Sant'Angelo, passing these beautiful angel statues along the way. Outside the Basilica, they were in the process of putting up an enormous Christmas tree, which was fun to see. Fortunately, since we got there early, the security line was short. We walked around the Basilica for a bit, impressed by its sheer vastness and opulence. Then we discussed climbing the dome. My husband wanted to do it and climb every step himself. I decided to take the elevator so my clothes wouldn't get all sweaty. Fortunately, for some reason, elevators do not trigger my claustrophobia. At least from there, I figured I'd get a pretty good view from the roof deck. And indeed, the roof itself was certainly worth seeing. You get to see the backside of the impressive statues and a closer view of the dome itself. There's even a mailbox from which you can send a postcard from the smallest country in the world. That's right, Vatican City is its own country, separate from Italy, and has an area of less than 1 square mile. A fun fact I did not know before this trip. There were also some cute pigeons on the roof, which is always a bonus for me. I love pigeons. You can go partway along a walkway inside the dome without actually climbing into the dome, and I recommend checking that out as well if you are able to tolerate either the elevator or climbing a fair amount of stairs. You get a great view of the gorgeous interior of the dome, including the mosaics. It was fascinating to see the individual stones in the mosaics up close. At this point, I had planned to head back downstairs, but from where I stood on the roof, the top of the dome didn't look so far away. I saw people up there, and I'll admit it, I felt some good old-fashioned FOMO. Had I really come all this way just to chicken out? Flown all the way to Rome, only to miss out on what many people call an iconic experience? Was I letting my fear control me? How bad could it really be? I took a deep breath and plunged into the tunnel that led to the stairs. And, internet friends, it was bad. I don't have any footage of this part of my adventure because I was too busy having a total meltdown. At first it was sort of okay. The tunnel starts out wide, but soon it narrows in, and in a part that I found especially upsetting, it slopes inwards so that the top is very close to your head. Sometimes in claustrophobic spaces, I found that shielding my eyes like horse blinkers can help, so I put my hands up to my face, but the tightness of that tunnel was still too much for me. Soon I was hyperventilating and walking through the tunnel like this. When I came out to a small landing where there was someone else resting on a bench, they were clearly concerned and they were like, "Are you okay?" And I was just like really embarrassed, so I was like, "Yeah," and I just kept going. When I staggered out onto the little walkway at the top of the dome, I just grabbed onto the bars to the outside and took a while to cry and catch my breath. The view from up there was beautiful, but honestly, I don't think it was as unmissable as travel bloggers say. Maybe my appreciation was diminished because I was exhausted from my panic attack as well as the dread of having to go down. On the way down, I went as quickly as possible, shielding my eyes during the worst parts of the tunnel. When I made it to the ground, I reunited with my husband, who had been wondering where I'd gone off to. And I was like, yeah, I basically forced myself to climb climb the dome, and it was terrible. After that, we headed to the Vatican Museums. We love going to art museums, and the Vatican Museums have one of the most amazing collections in the world. At the museums, you're sort of vaguely herded through a one-way walk through a large diversity of collections. There's an iconic scene in George Eliot's novel Middlemarch where the protagonist, Dorothea, has been ditched by her boring and annoying husband on her honeymoon to Rome. She goes to wander through the Vatican Museums and runs into her husband's hot cousin. Their little meet-cute is next to a statue of sleeping Ariadne. Middlemarch is one of my husband's absolute favorite novels, and a novel I greatly admire as well, so we were really hoping to see this statue. But when we asked the security guard about it, he said the statue was stored in a room that tourists weren't currently allowed to see, which was a bit of a letdown. It was hard to be disappointed for long, though. One of my favorite rooms was the Gallery of Maps. Dating to the 1580s, this long hallway is painted with a series of 40 geographical maps of different regions of Italy. I loved that the artists included not only geographical features like mountains, volcanoes, and rivers, but added beautiful and sometimes whimsical little details like ships and sea monsters. One of the most famous artworks in the museum is Raphael's fresco The School of Athens. Painted between 1509 and 1511, it depicts famous philosophers, scientists, and mathematicians from ancient times, including Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates. The model for Plato was Leonardo da Vinci, and Raphael also snuck in a portrait of himself. I love the expression on his face. He looks almost bashful, like, "Hey guys, sorry, I just really wanted to give myself a little credit here." Also, is that Sam Bankman-Fried? No, it can't be. This painting is only supposed to include people who were wise. The amazing thing about these rooms is there is something to look at on every surface. The ceiling is painted, the floors have beautiful tiles, every inch of the walls is decorated, and the artists did not slack off anywhere. I loved looking at all the details they put into even small elements like this green man. And then there was this series of delightfully grumpy women holding up the border. Each one looks like she has a particular way in which she is just so over it. Girl, tell me about it. The rooms stretched on and on, each with collections of art that could have been individual museums in their own right. It was truly impressive and honestly truly exhausting. There were very few places to sit. Maybe with so many people coming through because it is sort of crowded, they don't want visitors to linger. Either way, the lack of seating for the occasional break made it a physically grueling experience. My husband and I were totally wiped out by the end. We both like hiking, and we both agreed that in some ways, perhaps because of the lack of spot to take breaks, experiencing the Vatican Museums was even more physically challenging than going on a long hike. I think my anxiety attack earlier in the day also contributed to my fatigue. I was grateful that I got to experience everything I did. At the same time, I suspected I might have enjoyed myself a little more had I not pushed myself to climb the dome. I made myself do it because I was acutely aware that traveling to Rome was a special privilege. I had saved up for it, dreamed about it, and looked forward to it for an entire year, so I didn't want to miss out on a single element of that experience. I learned, though, that sometimes what's on everyone else's travel bucket list might not be right for you. Sometimes it's okay to listen to ourselves and take a step back and miss out on the thing, so you have more energy to enjoy the things you like. I've seen a few people on the internet talking about, instead of FOMO, JOMO, the joy of missing out. Sometimes saying no to something can give you more energy to say yes to something else. You can fully appreciate and enjoy your experience without necessarily doing everything people say that you should do. What do you think? Are there any famous travel bucket list items you wish you'd avoided? Which ones are totally worth it? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.